My ignorance cost me $550,000. At the start of my career, I was chasing a number. 16 rentals, I thought was going to get me to $7,000 to $8,000 of cash flow, and that was the plan. And I was so locked into how to do that that I focused on putting down, 20% for conventional purchases, buying some properties through FHA loans for owner occupied. It was all traditional purchases, and I shut out strategies like BRRRR as an option. I wanted to go through it, in my view, the old fashioned way. And today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk through that decision and what it actually cost me. At the time when I made my plan, I wasn't looking at higher yielding markets. I was looking at sort of Prince George's County and areas very close and around DC. So I never considered doing something like BRRRR because the property values were so high that it didn't seem like I could cash flow at the end of the process. I saw that you could make equity, but from my perspective, I felt, hey, I'm not going to be able to eat equity. And it's kind of a phantom number. You can pull out money from your equity, through a HELOC or refinance or things like that. But it's weird. It's like you can only pull out the money once you have enough equity to meet the LTV requirements. So it has to be at least 25% equity for that. Then you have to be able to have enough equity to cover the closing costs in a refinance or HELOC type of situation. And then after that is the equity that you can actually take out. So it's not all of the equity. Basically, you need to gain a bunch of equity before you can really meaningfully take any out. And you have to stay in a stable interest rate environment. It's just not as quick to get you to having the sort of time freedom and that sort of thing that I wanted to have. So I locked in on a strategy of going down a cash flow sort of route and buying properties with down payments. That's what I focused on doing. So to be fair, doing this strategy, we did get properties. And eventually, when we got better at being landlords, we got cash flow too. It was good. And it did give us a lot of the freedom and the confidence to start minimizing our reliance on our jobs. But over time, I realized that 16 units wasn't going to get me the cash flow that I needed. I had an underestimate for a number of different types of critical expenses, which basically meant that at those 16 properties, I would be nowhere near the cash flow that I wanted to get to be comfortable to support myself. And so I was going to need to get a lot more rentals. And I realized at that time that I didn't have the patience to save 20% down for 50 more houses or 60 more houses or however many more it was that I was going to need. So I pivoted to the BRRRR strategy. So for those that aren't familiar, the BRRRR strategy is basically just a new age acronym for old school value add investing applied to houses. So basically you buy a property, you fix it up to add value, then you rent it out, and then you refinance the property to recover your money, and then you're able to do that again and again and again, turning that money. So since that pivot, I was able to take about $100,000 when I pivoted to BRRRR and use that to buy 40 or 50 more deals with just that 100,000. And by the time it's all said and done, when the dust settles, we left about $50,000 in total in those properties. That 50,000 was to get the last 40 or 50 deals. But when I add up the money that I had to put in to get those first 20 or so deals, what I can see is that in total, I put in around $550,000 to get those. So I put in 550 grand to get the first 20 or so units. And then I only had to spend another $50,000 to get the next 50 units after that. So you could see that in many regards, I might have been much better off putting the $550,000 into the BRRRR strategy. And that might have been 500 units or 600 units instead of the 20 that I got for it. So question is, did it really cost me $550,000? Well, it's hard to say. The equity in those first units is worth more than the money that I put in. So someone might say, hey, well, you didn't lose the money, you'll be able to get it back. And we'll see in the long term, whenever we finally sell or get out of those properties, if they hold their value and we're able to pull the equity back out. But either way, it did cost me everything that I could have built using that $550,000. And at minimum, I'm going to have to wait until I'm able to recover that money to try to do something with it. I would still go down the route that I went down in the end because I think that my state of mind was such that I would not have been able to jump right in at BRRRR. I needed to jump in with something more conservative that didn't feel like it was hand wavy and all of this, because just my experience growing up with real estate, I was concerned that real estate was pretty much a scam. So I needed to do something that was more concrete and conservative. And I think that regular conventional purchases was conservative enough that I was willing to start. And then it allowed me to gain some skills, which then created a foundation for me to go over into BRRRR. So in the end, I learned a lot. I don't regret having spent that money, but if I do get a chance in the future, I will try to get most of that money back and redeploy it in other ways within the business. I think I can get a way higher return on that money than just sitting in those 20 properties. I hope that's helpful for some of you, and you can think that through as you decide what you're going to do as far as what strategies you can use to build your own portfolio.